Welcome to Gentex Multimedia live stream for November 28, 2020, streaming live and directly to your device from Brisbane, Australia. And it's a wonderful weekend, and we'd like to once again welcome our sponsors for the segment, which is none other than Gaura Travels, your best way home and 24/7 service. So we're proud to welcome Gaura Travels as their sponsors for the segment here today. Well, right now, let's keep moving on. And breaking news for today is that a man from Bundaberg has been charged with terrorism offences following a Queensland Joint Counter-Terrorism Team investigation. And the key points for that report, which has just come in, is it is alleged that the man, 29, sought firearms training and was planning to undertake a terrorist act in Bundaberg region. He will face Brisbane arrest court today. The offence he is charged with carries a maximum penalty of life imprisonment. The 29-year-old Capnock man was arrested on Friday and charged with one count of act done in preparation for planning terrorist act. The offence carries that maximum penalty of life imprisonment. The man is expected to face Brisbane court, and it will be alleged that he was planning to undertake a terrorist act in the Bundaberg region and had sought firearms training. Investigators became concerned about the threats and the man allegedly towards a member of the public. They executed a search warrant in the property in Capnock on November 3. Police seized a number of electronic devices and a notebook at the address for evidentiary purposes. It will be alleged that the electronic devices contain documents indicating to a desire to undertake acts of violent extremist terrorism in IFP Assistant Commissioner and Counter-Terrorism Scott Lee said the targeted criminal behaviour to ensure that the community and the decision to charge this man was to prevent a terrorist act in Australia and to protect the community, Assistant Commissioner Lee said. The investigation highlights the professionalism and the dedication of the individuals and the agencies involved in the JCTT and their commitment in bringing people to account for their criminal actions. In Queensland Police Service Assistant Commissioner Cyril Scanlon also said that the example of a partner agencies working together to keep community safe. This outcome is a credit to their hard work and commitment to community safety, Assistant Commissioner Scanlon said. He said the Queensland JCTT comprises of IFP, QPS and Australian Security Intelligence Organisation. So there you are, up to date on today's live update of Gentex Multimedia. And of course, as we know, that today we are going to be talking about, some of the charter flights that have been arranged through our sponsors, Gaura Travel, and that how you can get to and from India under the current circumstances. But right now, let's get on with some of the moves. And of course, we know that Australia beat India in the cricket and of the first match. And of course, as we know, that the matches have begun. So
spinners. He's getting frustrated. He takes it out on the white ball.
Through the gap and a boundary. Been the option with that angle.
So there we go. Of course, we know that this is brought to you by the KTC of Cricket Australia and Fox Sports. Well, right now, moving on, Victoria has recorded no cases for 28 or 29 days in a row now. Let's get to that report.
It's an achievement that many people, including a series of epidemiologists, thought was just unreachable. But Victoria has got there 28 days in a row now without a single locally acquired infection. So now, going forward, any cases being found in the state, they'd truly be a surprise. New South Wales is also well on the way to effective local elimination if it doesn't record another local case before the end of next week. The only state recording them at the moment is South Australia, and the numbers there are thankfully remaining very low. So nationally, the 7-day average in Australia has come down now from a peak of more than 500 to less than 20, and it's been there for 40 days straight. That's a rare feat to have achieved globally. Only a couple of other countries have managed this, bringing a peak of this size down to virtually zero for even longer than Australia has. China is one example, and the other is Singapore. Of course, there are a handful of other countries that have managed to avoid a peak of the size of Australia's entirely. One example is Taiwan, only 625 infections in total through the entire pandemic. And closer to home, another example is New Zealand. But there are some cautionary tales as well. Countries that manage to get the numbers down very low but then lose grip and see a resurgence. Israel is one example, Ireland is another. So what's Australia's biggest risk to seeing a resurgence like this again? Well, it's the continued risk of more escapes from hotel quarantine. Since September, the number of cases being found in hotel quarantine has been slowly but steadily increasing. And the longer that the global pandemic situation is worsening and the more Australians want to come home, well, the longer that the risk of more breaches of quarantine in Australia remain.
Gentex Multimedia live stream up to date right now, and as we know, today's stream is brought to you by the courtesy of Gaura Travels, your 24/7 travel partners. Well, right now, let's go to the next news, and of course, let's do a sweep around the country, and as we have seen Victoria, right now, let's go to Northern Territory, where the Chief Minister says that the cap will double from 500 to 1,000 arrivals per fortnight, and he's very happy about that.
I can confirm that we are working to double from 500 to 1,000 out at Howard Springs to make sure we look after those returning Australians. The Australian government will work out which Aussies come home in what order with what planes from which countries, that they manage that side of the business, and we make sure we look after them here in the Northern Territory. So we are looking at doubling those numbers out at the Centre for National Resilience. The National Critical Care and Trauma Centre has been working towards this for a little while now. What we wanted to make sure was that in taking on people from overseas in the Centre for National Resilience, you've got to look at a couple of things for capacity or headroom. We've always wanted to make sure we never take on more numbers of people from hotspots than maybe our public health system could handle if there is any kind of outbreak in that. So the headroom we've always been mindful of is the number of people coming in and making sure we've got the capacity to look after them. We absolutely do. We always leave a bit of headroom there. So from my understanding, National Critical Care and Trauma can absolutely take care of these people. Centre for National Resilience can handle this. The public health system can handle this. You know, we've got all our ducks lined up, and we're very happy to work with the Australian government.
And of course, it is very good. And right now, moving on from Northern Territory, let's go to South Australia, where the Premier is announcing easing of some of the restrictions.
First thing that I can announce is that the border restrictions which have existed with Victoria will be completely lifted as of midnight on Monday night next week. So from the 1st of December, we will completely normalise our border arrangements with Victoria, and I know that this will be a huge relief for many people who have been adversely affected by these border restrictions. Secondly, I can announce a series of changes to restrictions that will be in place for a 2-week period from next Tuesday. And these chart our course back to where we want to be by Christmas. Firstly, I can announce that the patron caps on all general trade in licensed premises will be removed on Tuesday. And this is conditional, of course, on individual licensed premises deploying the QR reader technology on their site. Secondly, the density of 1 per 4 square metres will remain for all indoor activity, but we will resume the arrangements for 1 per 2 square metres outdoors. So indoors will be 1 per 4 square metres with seated consumption. Outdoors will resume the 1 per 2 square metres which allows for stand-up consumption. Caps will remain for private functions, and there are some changes. We increase the cap for funerals up to 150. We increase the cap for private functions up to 150, and again these private functions in licensed premises will allow stand-up consumption. For weddings, we keep the cap at 150, but we allow for dancing and also for stand-up consumption from Tuesday next week onwards. Home gatherings will remain at 10 persons. Gatherings over 1,000 and nightclubs will require a COVID management plan approved by SA Health. Community sport will resume from Tuesday next week, but we will be working with sport associations on a modified program of fixtures so that we can minimise the chance of infection and transmission. And finally, masks will be required when you can't maintain that 1.5 metres worth of physical distancing, especially in areas personal care services, allied health and residential care facilities. I can also announce that I have written to the Prime Minister requesting that the current suspension of all international passenger arrivals into Adelaide be extended for a further week through to Monday the 7th of December. This means that South Australia will not be receiving international arrivals until the 7th of December. I reiterate that we are 100% committed to the National Repatriation Program and getting Australians citizens back home safely, and we'll continue to work with the Commonwealth on a staged resumption of that mission.
Of course, everyone is working towards that mission on trying to bring everyone back home before Christmas, and it's good to see that all the territories are working together and that all the states are working together. Right now, let's get an update from Western Australia. Joining us is Premier Mark McGowan.
We said we'd consider it when they get to the 28-day mark. We'll consider this matter over coming days, and we'll make an announcement in the first half of next week, we expect. So I'll be consulting with the Chief Health Officer, health officials, the Police Commissioner and the like about these matters. But as I've said the whole way along, our approach has been to be very, very cautious to see what happens in other states before we make a decision. Over the last 8 months, I've been to hundreds of press conferences and been asked these sorts of questions in which I've been pushed to make decisions on the fly. We're not doing that. We're going to be very, very cautious, very considered and very careful, and we're not going to take risks with the health or the economy of West Australians.
And of course, as we said before, that today's segment is brought to you by the courtesy of Gowda Travels. And right now, because everyone's been talking about how to bring people back home, so how is a lot of this going to be achieved? For that, let's talk to Ashwin from Gowda Travels. Ladies and gentlemen, the festive season is just around the corner and people are planning their getaways. And for your information and knowledge, we have Ashwini from Gowda Travels to talk to us about some other options that are available at this point in time. Welcome to the show, Ashwini.
Thank you, Vijit. My pleasure to be part of your show. Thank you for inviting us to speak a few words.
Now it's wonderful that everything that you've been doing out there. So Ashwini, could you tell us how has Gaura Travel been able to assist people during COVID-19?
So yeah, Umesh, we feel very fortunate that in this pandemic we have had some small role in helping our Indian community in Australia. So as you know, as everybody knows, that all the normal flights are completely shut down. All the borders are closed. So at the moment, there were a lot of people who were stuck in Australia from India, and they wanted to return back home. So we looked at that situation. We were getting lots of calls to help in the situation. So we tried to talk to the government, tried to talk to the consulates, tried to talk to the airlines, and we started some charter flights. And very happy to share that our first flight went from Sydney on the 22nd of July. Second was on 23rd July from Melbourne. We thought we'll do 2 or 3 flights, but somehow or other we kept getting requests more and more and more. And on 20th of November, we finished our 25th charter flight. So with that, with 25 charter flights, we have helped so far 6,510 Indians to reach back to India from Australia.
Now, that is wonderful, and now it is great to see that you had so many charter flights, and of course helping all the people getting back. That is so wonderful. Now, moving forward, what do you foresee happening within our Indian community?
So yeah, as you know, moving forward, basically the flights are still not operating normally. The borders are still closed. I still feel the borders will keep remaining closed at least till end of December for sure. Yesterday only one news came where the India government has extended the border closure till end of December. But they are extending it every month after month. So it may remain closed for January, February as well. But for December, it's officially closed. And more now also, a lot of people are working from home and they are thinking that why shouldn't they just go to India and spend some time with their family over there, give them support as well as work from there. Because anyways, working from home here or there, it doesn't make any difference, So it is giving some flexibility to a lot of people. In fact, I believe a lot of IT companies are saying permanently you work from home, or they are saying at least for next 6 months or 1 year. So there is no certainty when the back to office will happen again. And many people are working from home, So I am seeing the trend that in our recent flights, it is becoming 50-50. Like 50% people are going who are stuck here, and 50% people are going who are PR and residents of Australia from Indian background. But they are thinking, let's go to India and spend there 2-3 months and stay with family and also work from there. So this trend is seeming to continue, more and more in the future. And because of that, we are still having flights going in December to assist all these people to travel back to India.
Okay, as you mentioned that people will be more inclined towards working from home, and that is definitely the trend that's happening now. And of course, what better time now, if you have to go and plan to go back home. So what are the opportunities for people during this period?
So as I mentioned that we have 7 charter flights in December month itself. And as you know, we have done already many flights from Melbourne and Sydney. So that has more population. So definitely that is still continuing on. There are a couple of flights from Sydney and 3 and 4 flights from Melbourne. But I have something very, very exciting to share with you, that now for the first time we have launched a charter flight from Brisbane. And due to a lot of requests that was coming to us that you all are doing from Melbourne and Sydney, why not from Brisbane? So we thought, okay, we will give it a go. And on 21st of December, there is a charter flight going from Brisbane to Delhi, and then also further connecting to other cities in India. If anyone is interested, we will do the end-to-end solution. We will give you a flight from Brisbane to Delhi, and further if somebody is requiring to Ahmedabad, to Mumbai, to Hyderabad, to Bangalore, to various cities in India.
Okay, so all of these flights, would they be charter flights?
That is correct, sir. All the flights that is going from, because currently there are no normal flights operating to India, so all of these flights are fully chartered by Gaura Travel only, and we are taking the full responsibility end to end. Once you reach India, after that from Delhi to other cities, it is not chartered, it is a domestic flight, but we are giving that domestic flight with full service airline, which is Air India and Vistara, not low cost airline. So
Okay, so that is wonderful. So now, as you mentioned that all these flights going from Brisbane, so what are the options and some dates available?
So from Brisbane, we have it on 21st of December.
Yes, okay.
So just before the Christmas period, 21st of December. It has been quite already successful. We have only launched it last week on Friday. And so far, more than 50 bookings have already come through. So my request and urge to all people who are interested to go back from Brisbane directly, and you don't need to travel to Melbourne or Sydney. You can travel directly from Brisbane.
That is wonderful news that they'll be able to travel directly from Brisbane. And now, what are any special requirements that people might need, and who can qualify for this travel?
So basically, if you are an Indian passport holder, then there is no special requirement. You just book the ticket on our website. We have a very fantastic website, which we are very, very proud of. It is very sophisticated. Everything can be done online directly. It's called charter.gauratravel.com.au. So you book there, all the details you mentioned, the name and passport copies you will have to update over there, and just pay a 5% deposit only. Not the full amount, only the 5% deposit first. Then our team will check everything, your documents and everything, and then we will request for full payment. And we are currently offering a special price of only $1,099. That's $1,099. That's the cheapest that anyone has ever offered from Brisbane. And only limited seats are available for that price. So for Indian passport holders, there is no extra requirement. Now, if there is an Australian passport holder or a PR holder in Australia, then the additional requirement is that you have to take an exemption from Australian border post. Now, again, with my experience so far and what the other travelers are sharing, if they are traveling for a longer period of time, for 2 to 3 months, then they are getting the exemption. They have to just apply online and mention the reason why they want to travel. Then usually they are getting the exemption. So if you can get the exemption and then book the ticket, then you're ready to travel. And another news I would like to share, that now India is offering a facility where you don't need to quarantine there as long as you carry a negative RT-PCR test. So if you carry a negative RT-PCR COVID test with you, you can go to India and no need to quarantine and straight back to home.
Okay, and how do people get that certificate? They have to be tested here before they get on the flight?
That is correct. So before 72 hours, it cannot be done like 1 week, 2 weeks advance. It has to be done within the 72 hours of the flight date. And you go to any local GP and they will give you the reference to test it. So you basically get it tested here. And then there is a website called Air Suvidha website. And you have to go and upload that over there and also request for exemption from quarantine. And once you do that, then you will be given a quarantine exemption. Excuse me.
And of course, we know that this segment here is brought to you by the courtesy of Gaura Travels. And of course, Ashwin is joining us and providing us with all that update.
Be approved once it is uploaded online.
Well, Ashwini, thank you so much for that wonderful information that you have shared with us. Especially, it's a good news for all people wishing to travel from Brisbane. And 21st is a very good date because by that time, most of the offices would probably officially close as well, getting into their Christmas break. So that would be wonderful news for everyone. So once again, thank you so much for sharing this information with us. So ladies and gentlemen, Gaurav Travel has been the award-winning travel agent operating for the last 12 years. So thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing all this information with us, Ashwini.
Thank you, Meji. It is my pleasure, and look forward to speaking with you again in the future.
And of course, if there's a further updates, we will do a follow-up so on the updates that you might have. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you very much, Meji.
And they were, ladies and gentlemen, that very special report from our channel sponsor, Gaurav Travels. And of course, we also provide live updates during the week with Oz India Travel and Tanvi, which will still continue. So today, let's take a look at some of the other things that's happening as we are talking about travel. And so, around this time, way back in 1993, who came to Australia? Any guesses? Here she is. None other than Princess Diana. It was in November 1983.
Jamie Smith out at Ayers Rock, you have a question. Does Prince William have a favourite toy?
Jamie, he loves his koala bear he's got, but he hasn't got anything particular. He just likes something with a bit of noise.
Plastic whale which throws things out the top.
He got a plastic whale that throws things out the top, little balls.
Thank you. Jamie, I hope that answers your question. Danny Brumby at Allen Springs Station.
Good morning, Prince Charles and Princess Diana. Could you please tell me what kind of school Prince William will go to?
So there you are, up to date on today's news, and the other news is right now Kylie Moore has arrived at the Canberra airport. As we now see, has been released, and in exchange with other soldiers or prisoners of war. So in an exchange, so and she has arrived in Canberra. And moving onto the world news segment is of course the funeral of Madonna. Of course, lots of people got disappointed because they could not get close to the casket. But of course, looking at the number of people, it was just amazing the amount of people who came out.
Don't cry for him, Argentina. Weep with an unrestrained grief. Such is the reverence for Maradona in his homeland that mourners rioted for a glimpse of his casket. Diego Armando Maradona could never be laid to rest in peace. Not this soon, not in a nation that demanded time to absorb his loss and for it to honour his life. He lay in state in the presidential palace, a building that couldn't cope with the heaving mass of mourners who queued for blocks.
It's not possible to explain how I feel. It moves me. Seeing him play touched me.
An attempt to call time only incensed them. But after delays, television was their only chance to see the 60-year-old's coffin when the cortege made its way to his final resting place. Across Europe, they watched on intently. Tributes were laid outside San Paolo Stadium in Naples, his home for 6 of his greatest playing years, while inside the club's current players turned out, each wearing his name and number, for a silence that hung heavily over the crowdless cavern. A legend and inspiration is how he was remembered, and not just by those in his homeland, but they feel more than most that they'd been touched by a godly hand. David Mark, ABC News.
Amazing footage there, of course, being the man that he was, and that is sort of expected. But right now, let's go to Taiwan, where there has been a big row which has erupted in the parliament itself. And you know what it's all over? It's all over pork from USA. So the legislators from Taiwan's main opposition party threw big guts at other lawmakers over a bitter debate on easing U.S. pork imports. So that's what all the commotion there was about. Well, right now, the next news, while we're still on overseas news, is that Australian wine has been put on the firing line in China. Let's listen to that report.
Adelaide Hills winemaker Ben Anderson didn't even know of China's move until the ABC contacted him this afternoon, an unwitting target of the China trade stoush.
Everyone's very nervous. Obviously China is our major exporter or importer from Australia, Australian wine. So to take that away from us in one hit is going to be a big blow to everybody.
Winemakers big and small will be slugged with temporary tariffs, different amounts for different labels. Australia's biggest exporter to China, Treasury Wines, will be hit with a 169% markup. Other well-known brands like Brown Brothers and Chapel Hill will be hit with a similar hike. Many producers have been named by Beijing, but those not on this list can expect to be hit with a tariff of more than 200%, making business with China unviable.
The Australian government will vigorously defend the industry, but we are deeply concerned by this.
China accuses Australian producers of dumping wine into China at a discount rate, claiming the local industry has been substantially harmed.
The idea that Australia somehow subsidises our wine industry for it to be able to dump or sell its product below cost on international markets is a falsehood. It is wrong, and the findings of this preliminary investigation are erroneous in fact and in substance.
We absolutely believe there is no basis to this whatsoever. China is our highest price point market, so there is no possibility of us dumping product on the market.
Orange winemaker James Robson has been selling wine to China for 10 years and has spent thousands of dollars and many trips building relationships there. He says winemakers are the victims and pressure is growing on the Australian government.
It's just terrible news. It makes it completely uneconomical. It's tripling the price of wine.
The Australian government says the move goes against the free trade agreement between the two countries and WTO rules.
I think Australia should reflect upon its own behaviour and think about whether it respects China's interests.
A clear message from Beijing that China won't be the one compromising. Bill Birtles, ABC News.
So that's that news there. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, once again, we'd like to thank our sponsors for our segment. So today's live stream is proudly sponsored by Gora Travels, your best way home 24/7 agency. Well, right now, let's take a look at one of our other sponsors, which is GlobeNet Realty.
GlobeNet Realty. GlobeNet Realty has been the longest established, trusted and respected agency in its trade area. Washa Chandra, Director of GlobeNet Realty, provides honest and ethical service to her customers. If you are thinking of investing in Brisbane real estate market, or if you are seeking professional property management, then you should contact Usha Chandra today on landline 3865 4466 or mobile 0419 775 416. And for further updates, log on to our website www.globenetrealtor.com.au. GlobeNet Realty is your own local real estate agency. Situated at Shop 52281 Sandgate Road, Boondall. GlobeNet Realty. Real estate is our world.
And real estate is the world. Of course, we know that they've been operating in the area for such a long time. And right now, the headlines for today, as we know, that man has been charged in Bundaberg over the terrorism attack, and the Chinese load a lot of duty on Australian wine, which makes it very highly unprofitable. And of course, Australian government has said that they will look into that matter. And Kylie Moore has come home. So these are some of the news for today. Well, it's been wonderful having your company, and with that, I'd like to say goodbye, and we'll see you on Monday. So have a wonderful weekend, whatever's left of it, and we'll bring to you all the news. Don't forget the Gayatri Yagna at Queensland Vedic Centre tomorrow from 10 a.m. You are welcome to come. So until tomorrow, it's goodbye from me.